In this video, we're going to take a quick look at Ableton Live 9. Live 9 is recording software that's a little different from other digital audio workstations or DAWs in that it features primarily a vertical layout rather than the horizontal track layout that you would see in other software like Pro Tools, Cubase, Logic, or GarageBand. Now, the advantage to this vertical layout is it allows for a little more of a creative workflow. You can arrange what's called a clip on here into several different scenes, which allows you to mix and match different takes within a track and see how everything fits with each other. So it allows you to come up with several different ideas really quickly and then kind of mix and match those later on. Now, when you first boot up the program, it's going to look something like this. You've got your help view to the right, which is going to run you through several different text-based tutorials. You've got some sample sessions in here that'll kind of run you through different things that you can do within the software environment. For right now, we're going to close this out though. Now, you can always reopen that help window by going up to help, just clicking that help view right there. Now, we've also got our info view in the bottom left. Now, what this does is provide a little information about whatever your mouse cursor is hovered over. So this is good when you're first learning the software because you can kind of see where everything's at and what everything is going to do. Now, in the main window here, we've got by default 4 tracks that are going to populate the viewer. We've got 2 MIDI windows, or 2 MIDI tracks rather, and 2 audio tracks. Now, MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. Basically what that is more or less digital sheet music. It allows you to record different notes from a performance without recording the audio. So what you do with those notes is then send them through a plugin or a software instrument that is then going to generate those sounds based on the performance that you played. We've also got 2 audio tracks on here, which are exactly what they sound like. They allow you to record audio onto these tracks, whether it's from a vocal mic. If you've got a guitar or a bass guitar plugged right into your computer, you can record those right onto these clips, which is this little window right here. And we also have 2 auxiliary returns, or effects returns as you'll hear them called. By default, these are going to be set to reverb and delay. Now, you can send portions of your audio tracks or MIDI tracks over to here to give them a little different sound. So going down the list on the tracks here, we've got what's called a clip slot. Now, this allows you in each slot to record a different version of something within this track. So it allows you to do several different takes of a single performance. You can do several different variations, and that will allow you to mix and match these with your other tracks and see how they're going to correspond with your other ideas. And that's really the primary element of Ableton Live, is being able to record these different clips, arranging them in a horizontal row like this, which is called a scene, which you can trigger by pressing the play over here, and it will play all 4 of these at once. And then the columns are just your individual track, and you can record several different clips in each column, but you can only play one clip at any given time within a track. Now, going down even further, we've got our input and output section, what you'll also hear referred to as your I/O. Now, this is just how your audio is getting into your tracks. So right now it's set to external in, which usually just defaults to the built-in microphone on your computer. And this is recording on channels 1 and 2, which you can see the little meter here moves up and down as I'm speaking because the audio is coming through. Now, I'm not hearing that audio because my monitor, which is allowing the audio to come through my speakers, is off. And that's going to be the default on these audio tracks so that you don't get feedback. Because if this is on all the time, what can happen is your microphone can come through the speakers and back into your microphone, through the speakers again, and back into your microphone, and just create a really obnoxious feedback loop. So by default, that's off to prevent that. Now, what I typically do is set these to auto. And what that allows you to do is it's set to off, but as soon as you click the record enable button down here, it's going to pass the audio right through there, and then you can hear it in your headphones or on your speakers. But as soon as I click this record enable off, it again prevents that output from coming through. You can also set this to in, and regardless of whether or not you've got this record button enable pressed, it's going to come through your speakers or your headphones or wherever you've got your monitor plugged into. Lastly is just your output here, and this is where this channel or this track is going to be sent to. Now, by default, these are going to be sent to your master output, which is just your master track over here. So you've got your master volume control. And then on the tracks, each track is going to have that volume control. So that's just adjusted by sliding this little triangular fader up and down. And that way you can mix the individual volumes of your tracks to get them to all sit nice with each other. To the left of this, you've got your panning. This is all the way to the left. It's only going to come out of your left speaker. If it's all the way to the right, it's only going to come out of your right speaker. So this again creates a little more space for each track when you're doing your mixing and the finalizing stages. Now below this is your track activator button. When this is on, the track is on. When it's off, your track is off. So below that, you've also got your solo button. Now when a track is soloed, it mutes every other track. So you're only hearing this track. And if you unsolo that, it allows you to hear everything again. And then again, we've got our record enable button, or our ARM session recording button. So when I have that enabled, you can see the audio is going through this channel. And then if I press record up here in our global transport, it's going to record whichever channel is record armed or record ready. The next thing we're going to take a look at is just our browser window, which is over here to the left. Now this is sorted out by several different categories. Got different sounds, instruments, audio effects, and everything of that nature. Now each of these you can drag into a track over here to change the sound. Now in the case of our MIDI tracks, since those don't have any sound on them, we need to load those up with an instrument. And this is just done by clicking instruments on here. And this is going to be sorted out through the different types of instruments. Now depending on which version you've got of Ableton Live, whether you've got intro, just standard live, or suite, you're going to have a few different instruments in here. So you can go to the instrument rack, and this is going to be sorted out by the type of instruments. So if we wanted to say put a piano on MIDI track 1, we'd simply go to piano and keys, expand this window. We've got several different variations of that piano and keys sound. So we can just go ahead and drag and drop grand piano on here. And as soon as I drop this on, we can see in the bottom that it just loaded this grand piano plugin on this track. So you can do that by dragging and dropping, or whichever track you've got selected, you can double click and it's going to load that up on there. So with this down here is your track window. So whatever is on here is going to change depending on which track you've got selected. So if I go back over to MIDI track 2, we don't have anything on there yet, so it's just an empty track window. Whereas if I go back to 1, now we've got that old school Rhodes sound on there. So now that we've got a sound loaded on a MIDI channel, there's actual audio that's going to come through when you press a note on your keyboard or if you draw in anything. So we can see a visual indicator on that on the track itself. Now it's changed from this little signal over here, which just will let you have different sounds on there. And these little dots will go up and down when it's receiving note information. But when you drop an instrument on a MIDI track, it looks more like an audio track because now you've actually got sound coming through it. So you're going to have more control over the volume of it. Again, you're panning, track on and off, solo, and record enable. Now the last thing we're going to look at on the track view is our auxiliary sends. Now what these allow you to do is send a portion of the signal over to these auxiliary sends here. So if you want to send a little bit of the piano sound to your reverb, you just turn this dial up. So right now at halfway, it's sending half of the piano sound over to that reverb. We can do the same thing with the delay. Now it's going to send half of the piano sound to the delay. So you can mix these to taste. It's a pretty interesting effect if you crank them all the way up. And then a little more subtle, if you just have them kind of down a little lower, those can usually help them in the mixing stage as well. So the last thing we're going to take a look at now is just our top view up here, or what's called our transport. We've got our tap tempo, which you can tap this a few times, and it'll change the beats per minute or your BPM to whatever you tapped in. By default, I think this sets to 120 beats per minute, but you can change that to taste. And this is just going to be your meter or your time signature. To the right of this is going to be your metronome. When this is on, whenever you're playing a session, you're going to hear that metronome. Now this bar, this one bar right here, that's your quantization menu, or your global quantization. And this is where Ableton Live really gets pretty cool, because with all of your clips that you've got down here, those are going to all be synced up to this tempo. Now, if I've got several different iterations of these clips on here, and I want to kind of mix and match them with each other, this quantization is going to allow them to play in time with each other. So if I've got 4 clips lined up here, and I want to play maybe this one instead of this top one. Again, I don't really have any audio loaded up here just yet. But with that, as soon as I click play on this, which would turn into a play arrow instead of this little stop square, it will wait until the next bar, or whatever you've got it set here, to trigger that clip. And you can change this to taste. You can wait for the next bar. You can wait for the next 8 bars. You can even do it as little as a 30-second note. So you can kind of adjust that to taste and whatever you're doing live on the fly. Now over here, you've got just your arrangement position, which is just where in the song or the session your cursor is going to be at. This can be reset just by clicking the stop button. It'll bring it back to measure 1, beat 1. And then like any other recording software, you've got your play button, stop, and record. So that's pretty much it for the basics of Ableton Live. There's obviously a whole lot more that you can do with this. This is just the session view, which is one of 2 views that Ableton Live uses. You can get to the second view, which is called arrangement view, by pressing your tab key on your keyboard. So by doing that, it changes the vertical layout to a more horizontal layout. That's a little more traditional and reminiscent of other recording software. So that's something we're going to get into in the next few videos, just the differences between the session view, which is this one here, the vertical layout, and then the arrangement view, which is the horizontal layout. The 2 work really good with each other. It's just a little weird and kind of wrapping your head around the concept of how they interact with each other, because you've got several different ways that the audio can work with the different views and with your different arrangements on there, depending on what all you've got playing. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.